Hi everyone, this lesson is on how to divide a decimal by a decimal. We're finally here. This is kind of what's been leading us towards the end of this chapter. If you're following along in McGraw-Hill, we are in chapter 6, and this is lesson 13 on how to divide decimals, okay? So here we go. We're going to start with our first equation, which is going to be 67 and 5/10 divided by 4 and 5/10. So your book or test or anything you're looking at might set it up horizontally, so it's really important to understand how to set it up with your box. Don't forget your steps. Does McDonald's sell burgers regularly? And I always write the symbols to help me remember what I'm doing step by step, because ultimately what's great about dividing decimals, like you saw in the previous lesson, which was dividing a decimal by a whole number, your goal is to get rid of the decimal and just put it in the answer so that you can just divide whole numbers, and that's essentially what we're doing. So the 67.5 is being divided, and it's being divided by a 4 and 5/10. All right. First step, I love this. Get rid of the decimal. This decimal right here, you're going to get rid of it. You're going to get rid of it by making 40.5 into a whole number. So that means I need to move this decimal over once. You essentially want to get the decimal all the way over to your box, and you need to count how many times you had to move it over to get it here to the end. I had to move it once. So because I had to move it once, I need to do the same thing in my problem. And I put the decimal in the wrong spot here. Okay? So if I moved it over once, I need to do the same thing here. I need to move it over once. So now my decimal over here is sitting here. So I'm going to erase my marks. Okay? So now I have this. So I have 45, which is good. I have a whole number. But I still need to get rid of this decimal. I had to move it over once, and now I'm going to shoot it straight up. And now it's gone. It's in my answer. And now all I'm doing is dividing 675 divided by 45. And we can definitely do that following our steps. So here we go. Okay, 45 cannot fit into a 6, so that's 0. But I can put a 45 into a 67 at least once, so I'm going to place my 1. And 1 times 45 is 45. Now I subtract. 7 minus 5 is 2. And 6 minus 4 is 2. Now I bring down. Bring down 1 digit at a time. I have a 5. Okay, how many times can 45 fit into 225? I'm going to guess 5 times, and let's see what it comes out to. I always come off to the side and try it before I just put it in there. Because if you just guess and you don't get as close as you can to this number, you're going to get the wrong answer. You need to have the right numbers up here. So I'm going to see what 5 is and see if that gives me 225 or if I know it's the closest I can get without going over it. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 4 is 20 plus 2 is 22. Look at that. Oh my gosh, it's a fact family. 45 times 5 gives me 225. So I'm going to put my 5 up here. Then I multiply it. Then I subtract. I don't have another number to bring down. So there's my answer. My answer is, it looks like 0, 1, but you can just get rid of the 0. My answer is 1 and 5/10. Let's go ahead and do another example. Here we go. So what's different about dividing decimal by a decimal? You have to move it over and then bring it up. And then you get rid of it. And I love that. We just get rid of the decimal so that we can just divide normally. So let's say we have, let's write our new equation here. Let's say we have 0, 6 divided by 1 and 5/10. Okay, so we have 600ths divided by 1 and 5/10. That looks pretty funky. We got decimals and zeros. Let's get rid of them, right? So first things first is put your numbers where they belong. Your dividend and your divisor. Okay. Get rid of this one first, because remember, that tells us how many spaces we need to move our decimal to the right. I need to move it over once to get it over to our box. So because I had to move it over once, I have to do the same thing to this decimal. So move it over once and then bring it up. And now it's where it belongs. Okay, so now look at this. Well, 15 goes into 0 0 times. 15 goes into 0 0 times. I can just put those there. But now I'm going to see how many times 15 can go into 6. How many times can 15 go into 6? 0 times. So even though it's 0, I'm still going to put it there. And 0 times 15 is 0, and I still have 6. What do I do now? So here's what we do. We're going to keep dividing by adding a 0 and bringing it down. Okay? We only do this when we're dividing decimals by decimals because I need to keep going. I can't say that my answer is 0.0 remainder 6. No, we're going to keep going. Okay? So now I have 60 divided by 15, and I'm pretty sure the answer is 4, but let's find out over here. 5 times 4 is 20, and 4 times 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6. Yep, it's a fact family. 15 can go into 60 4 times, and 4 times 15 is 60. And now look at that, I have a beautiful 0 left over, so I don't need to add a 0, and my answer is 0.04, or my answer is 4 hundredths, okay? Let's be sure that you caught all of that because this is a great example when these types of problems come up. I got rid of the decimal by moving this one over once, which means I had to move this one over once and bring it straight up. I had to divide the 15 into each number even if it was 0 times. That's okay. I got all the way to the 6 and it still was 0, and because I was still left with a 6 remainder, what you can do now is add a 0 and bring it down and then divide, because that created a 6D, and 60 divided by 15 gave me a 4. So if you keep coming down with remainders and you don't have another thing to bring down, add a 0, bring it down, and then continue your dividing, okay? I'm going to go ahead and do another example. Let's see here. Let's do this one. Let me erase this. Keep our steps up there. Okay, I have 18 6/10 divided by 12 hundredths. That sounds super funky, but don't hesitate. Just follow the steps. I need to move my decimal over twice. You see that? 1, 2, which means I have to move this one over twice. Now watch what happens. 1, 2. Okay, weird. I had to move it over twice, but there's nothing there. Put a 0. Then bring it up. Okay? Watch that again if you have to, because I'm sure you'll have a lot of examples where that comes up. So even though there was a 0 there, you don't really have to include it because my whole number over here is now 12. And then what I'm dividing is I'm dividing essentially 1,860 divided by 12. So here we go. 12 can go into 18 once, and 1 times 12 is 12. Then I subtract. 18 minus 12 is 6. Bring down the 6. How many times can 12 go into 66? I'm going to guess 5 times because 5 times 12 is 60. Place my 5. Then I multiply. 5 times 12 is 60. Then I subtract and I get a 6. Bring down the 0. Ooh, look at that. 12 goes into 60 perfectly 5 times because 5 times 12 is 60. Now I'm left with a 0 and I have nothing to bring down, and I don't need to add a 0 to bring down because I'm left with a remainder of 0. So if you're left with a remainder of 0, you're good. Here's my answer. It's 155, or 155 and 0 tenths. All right, you guys, I hope that helps you with what you're working on. Make sure you go slow in this lesson and follow your division steps, and you should be just fine.